Hello, Tar Heel Nation. Welcome back to the UNC Hoops Talk podcast. This is Gil Elhart coming to you from Norfolk, Virginia, the day after suffering a tough loss to Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. This coming off the heels of the defeat to the team that I don't even want to mention their name, from Durham on Saturday night. Obviously, that was a tough blow. Lots of talking points from that game that we won't dive too deep into here in this podcast. Obviously, we know the outcome was an unfortunate loss in overtime, and the way things shook out in the last 3 minutes of regulation, particularly the last few seconds of both regulation and overtime, are things that we will probably never be able to not see the images because, it's them and they get all the publicity that they can get. But man, tough way to lose it, both in not converting at the free throw line and then also some late game poor execution defensively. A lot of ticky-tacky fouls that led to the other team getting what they needed exactly. And then just kind of a freak play for Trey Jones and Duke to end up tying the game, sending it in overtime. Carolina holds the lead, 5 points with 16 seconds. And an unfortunate foul on a drive, a layup and one, then a blown call leading to Duke getting the ball back. And somehow, some way, Carolina never even gets to see the ball other than trying to attempt the inbounds pass. The ball never makes it past half court, and Duke scores 7 points in the final 15 seconds to come back and pull that one out in Chapel Hill. That was tough for all of us to get over, probably still trying to get over it. And it seems that the players are still trying to get over it because they come into Winston-Salem on Tuesday night to play a Wake Forest team who had lost 8 of their last 10, I believe. And Carolina shoots an abysmal 33%. Just doesn't look like they're ready to play there in the first half. And the stat was 1 of 16, I think, 6% from three-point range. That's not going to get it done. Wake Forest outscores UNC behind the three-point line by 24 points, I believe, and by 5 points from the free throw line. Carolina, the one bright spot from the game against Wake Forest was that they shot about 87% from the free throw line, which was a positive thing to see, but Carolina can't seem to put it all together in the same game. If only they had that kind of percentage against Duke, we'd be feeling a lot different at this point in time, and hopefully the team rides some momentum going into Winston-Salem. But nonetheless, Carolina cannot shoot the ball. They weren't playing any kind of team defense with any kind of level of intensity or passion, it seemed. And I'm not questioning the effort. It's tough for these guys. They're playing their hearts out. A lot of them are battling through injuries. Garrison Brooks had his eye scratched for, the second or third time on the season. He's wearing a pair of goggles. And I think that affected his depth perception, although he shot the ball from the free throw line really well against Winston-Salem, against Wake Forest. He didn't convert a field goal. And Cole Anthony had a very tough night, shooting 0 for 6 from three-point range, and something like 5 of 20 or 18 from the field overall. This team's missing their senior leader, Brandon Robinson, who, of course, is out with his ankle injury since the end of the BC game, another tough officiating call that didn't go Carolina's way. And it just seems like that's been the story of the season, just not catching the breaks, a head-scratching loss followed by a solid performance, followed by another head-scratching loss. And unfortunately, in the back half of the schedule, the solid performances have not resulted in wins. So the losses have piled up on this team. They're currently sitting at 3-10 in the ACC and 10-14 overall, I believe. And their chances of making the postseason, let's just go ahead and call them pretty much done. There is, of course, the possibility of running the table in the ACC tournament, but let's all be realistic. Can we picture this team doing it the way things have gone this season? Very unlikely. So I think as fans, we need to change, if we haven't already, our expectation on what this team can accomplish and hope for just good team play going into these final games. They've got UVA coming into Chapel Hill this coming Saturday at 8 p.m. And UVA, it's not a classic UVA team from the most recent seasons. They have difficulty scoring the ball. They turn the ball over a lot. And any other year, this wouldn't necessarily scare you as a game that Carolina couldn't compete. I think Carolina will compete, but these guys certainly need to refocus after these last two losses and figure out again how to play together. Take those Carolina basketball mottos into their heart and play as one, play as a team, play together. And hopefully that results in at least a good performance. That, as fans, is what we hope to see, because against Wake Forest on Tuesday night, it was much like the game at Pitt earlier this season and the game in Chapel Hill versus Georgia Tech, where the team just didn't come out ready to play. Someone, Charles Randall, hey, what's up? Saying things may change all of a sudden for this team. You never know. It is true. It is true. We've all been hoping for that to happen. It's just don't get your hopes too far up, because you just don't know. You don't want them to be dashed and broken, which they already have been and stamped on a couple times already this season, it seems like. So, yeah, I mean, I want to see wins. I want to see just good team performances. Play some D. I don't know what that was in the first half against Wake Forest. Thankfully, in the second half, they did show some heart and some toughness and come back and compete. They closed it down to single digits in the last few minutes, but couldn't complete the comeback because, again, the overall shooting percentage just was not good enough to pull out a win on the road in the ACC. So I still don't know any news on when we might see Brandon Robinson, if we will see him before the ACC tournament, hopefully sooner than later. But, he's coming off of an ankle sprain. Hopefully Garrison Brooks doesn't have to wear his racquetball goggles in the next game, and he can see and he can shoot. Armando Bacot having a typical freshman season, up and down. A lot of good performances, and overall had shot free throws a lot better until the Duke game. I think he bounced back with a decent performance against Wake. And if there is a bright spot, I think, on the roster from the most recent games, it's been Leaky Black's performance. He's been very active defensively, getting his hands in the passing lanes, coming up with some steals, and offensively playing much more crisp with a bit more confidence. Still needs to develop his long-range shot. And that's something that I think a lot of us as fans have forgotten, that, the three-point line did move back a handful of inches from last season to this season. So I think that's affecting shooting percentages overall across the board in college basketball. So UVA this coming Saturday is next up for the Tar Heels, and then a Monday night tilt against the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. That one's on the road in Notre Dame. So that's a tough one. It's always difficult for ACC teams when they play that Saturday night game and then turn around and go on the road for the Monday night game 2 days later. I think the winning percentages for those road teams is pretty low. But again, if Carolina can just show fight, be competitive, I think they can win these games. I mean, there's no team in the ACC that I think Carolina can't hang with this season, despite the fact that, Carolina has suffered a lot of injuries and dealt with a lot of adversity and just has not meshed and gelled as a team overall. A couple teams have blown them out, which is surprising. The teams that have won by more, the average margin for the middle and bottom teams in the league is like 9 points, whereas the average winning margin by the teams in the upper echelon, Duke, Florida State, and so on, has been closer games that, in many cases Carolina could have or should have won. So that's what we're looking at. I was hopeful a couple weeks ago that Carolina would be able to pull themselves out of the cellar of the ACC and maybe get at least a one-day bye in the ACC tournament, making their task a little bit easier going into that tournament. Maybe pull out enough wins where they didn't have to win the tournament to make the NCAA. So it's a couple things in play right now are Roy Williams' first ever losing season as a coach, and also Carolina holding the lone possession of last place in the ACC. They've never done that in their existence. And so those two things are at risk at the moment. And can this team play themselves out of those things actually happening? That'll be interesting to see. That's what we have as fans to watch and hope for. If you're anything like me, I read an article that was like, I'm glutton for punishment, but I know no other way to be a fan. And that's me. I'm going to watch no matter what. I'm going to pull for them, and I'm going to be supportive of them. If you have not been paying attention on Twitter, and I read an article today from the Tar Heel paper, and also yesterday on Carolina Insider podcast, Jones, Angel, and Adam Lucas talking about the comments that were put on Andrew Platek's Instagram feed, which he's not even current on his Instagram feed. This is from a post back in November. Just not appropriate. So the level of hate, the level of vitriol that some Tar Heel fans are putting out there, or maybe trolls from other schools, who knows? But nonetheless, it's unacceptable. So we can be better. Everyone here that tunes into this podcast, I believe that you are, like Dan and myself, wanting to be a part of Tar Heel Nation, living with the team when the team is doing excellent, staying by your team when the team is struggling. And so it just happens to be, it's been a struggle this year, but we believe in them. I believe in the coaches. It is a team, so I'm not trying to place blame on any individual, and nor can I sit here from my couch and say that I would do better. I'm supporting them because I love the Tar Heels and I love Carolina basketball. So as fans, let's all try to be as positive and supportive as we can. And let's see if we can pull out some wins to close out the season. That'd be great. And if anyone has any messages that they want to send out to us, either Dan, All Tar Heel Dan on Twitter, or Yogi Gill on Twitter, feel free to message us. Thanks so much for tuning into the podcast, everyone. Look forward to checking in with you guys after hopefully a couple wins to start off this final stretch of the ACC season. All right, everybody, go Heels.